Welcome to the first lecture in your Certified Fitness Trainer course. In this lecture, we will explain the basic structures and processes of the human body and how they relate to the utilization of energy and movement. Our first topic is metabolism, the process through which our bodies sustain life. Metabolism encompasses the breakdown of molecules to release energy and the synthesis of molecules necessary for life. After discussing the chemical reactions that support life, we'll then build the human body from chemicals to cells, to tissues, to organs, and finally to the organ systems, all supported by the products of metabolism. Let's get started. Before we get into the basics of metabolism, let us first look at how the human body adapts in response to stress. When we impose a stress on the body, such as exercise, the body will change to become more proficient at this activity. This is known as the training effect. Your body begins to change at the cellular level, allowing more energy to be released with less oxygen. Your heart and capillaries become stronger and more dispersed in order to allow a more efficient flow of oxygen and nutrients. Your muscles, tendons, and bones involved with this activity also strengthen to accommodate the stresses imposed on them. In time, your body releases unnecessary fat from its frame, and your stride and gait become more efficient. Your resting heart rate and blood pressure drop. The training effect is only possible with sufficient energy to support physical activity, synthesis of new biomolecules, and the energy to drive the whole process. Energy comes from the sun and is converted by plants into carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Humans and other animals eat plants and animals as food to obtain these nutrients. Our bodies then process the food we eat into the energy required to maintain cellular activities. Intake and utilization of these nutrients support the training effect by providing our bodies with the energy and essential building blocks needed in order to adapt to the stresses of exercise. The ability to run, jump, and lift weights depends on your ability to transform food into biological energy. These physical abilities are contingent on thousands of chemical reactions that occur throughout our bodies all day long. Collectively, these reactions are known as metabolism. The many chemical reactions occurring in our bodies must be regulated to maintain balance. This is done through a process known as homeostasis. Homeostasis refers to the body's ability to maintain a sustainable internal environment despite what's going on outside of the body. Think of homeostasis as a kind of thermostat. A thermostat measures the temperature in a room and heats or cools the room as necessary in order to keep the temperature constant. If the temperature gets too low, the thermostat is activated and the room is heated. If the temperature gets too high, the thermostat is activated and the room cools. Of course, the processes in our bodies are more complex, but you can envision how homeostasis controls our internal environments. It is responsible for our ability to maintain a constant body temperature, proper oxygen and carbon dioxide levels in the blood, the right amount of water content in our tissues, an appropriate pH, and a certain metabolic rate. Homeostasis is important to the fitness enthusiast in that it is responsible for how our bodies adapt to exercise. When we lift heavy weights, our muscles grow bigger to accommodate the load. When we run long distances, we develop a higher endurance capacity to accommodate the demands on the lungs and muscles. This occurs because our bodies want to adapt to accommodate stress in order to remain in balance. As mentioned, metabolism is the sum of all chemical reactions that take place in the body. There are two phases of metabolism: anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism refers to building molecules and requires energy. Catabolism involves the breakdown of molecules, and energy is usually released in the process. Metabolism is a homeostatic process, meaning that the rates of anabolism and catabolism tend to stay in balance. The average rate at which your body builds up and breaks down molecules is known as your metabolic set point. This set point is determined by both environmental and genetic factors, and among other things, it determines body composition. This means that the likelihood of storing body fat and maintaining lean body mass is determined by your metabolic set point. Exercise can raise your metabolic set point, and therefore affect your body composition. Choice in foods will also influence your metabolic set point. Foods that you eat can either be burned to liberate energy, converted into body weight, or excreted. Where your food ends up is highly dependent on the type of nutrients present. The energy content of foods is measured in terms of calories, which are a unit of heat. Calories that we consume and utilize come from three nutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Protein, carbohydrates, and fats are known as macronutrients. Protein is made up of long chains of amino acids that contain nitrogen. The calories coming from protein are used for maintenance, repair, and growth of new tissues and organs. Carbohydrates are a broad range of compounds that include simple and complex sugars, starches, and fiber. Calories from starches and sugars are used for energy. These compounds must be broken down into simple sugars before they can be utilized. Glucose is the form of sugar that is used for energy, and glycogen is the form of sugar that is stored in the liver and the muscles. Fat includes oils and solid fats from both animal and plant sources. Calories from conventional sources of a fat are also used for energy, but they are prone to be stored as fat, since fat found in foods already has the same molecular structure as body fat. Energy metabolism describes the breakdown of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins into usable molecules for energy. One of these molecules is adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. ATP is the molecule that stores energy in a form that can be used to fuel muscle contractions. Our muscle cells can produce ATP by any one or a combination of three metabolic pathways: the ATP-CP pathway, the non-oxidative glycolytic pathway, and the oxidative pathway. ATP can be formed in the presence or absence of oxygen. Anaerobic metabolism describes ATP production that does not use oxygen. ATP is produced quickly, but in limited amounts. Short-term activities at higher intensities, such as sprinting or weightlifting, utilize ATP production from anaerobic energy pathways. The ATP-CP and non-oxidative glycolytic pathways produce ATP anaerobically. Let's take a more in-depth look at each of these pathways, beginning with the ATP-CP pathway. In the ATP-CP system, creatine phosphate, CP, contributes its phosphate group to adenosine diphosphate, turning it into adenosine triphosphate. One molecule of creatine phosphate results in one molecule of ATP. This system is sufficient for 3 to 15 seconds of all-out effort, such as throwing or Olympic weightlifting. The second anaerobic process is known as non-oxidative glycolysis, and it utilizes either the storage form of glucose, glycogen, or glucose itself, which would be circulating in the blood. In glycolysis, glucose or glycogen is converted to lactic acid. If glycogen is used, it must first be converted to glucose before the reaction can take place. The glucose molecule is split in half and energy is released. This energy is enough to regenerate 2 ATP molecules and leave 2 pyruvate molecules. In non-oxidative glycolysis, these pyruvate molecules are immediately converted to lactic acid. Lactic acid buildup in the muscles can lead to fatigue. When it is cleared from the muscle, it is taken to the liver, where it is converted back into glucose and glycogen. Non-oxidative glycolysis is reliable for 1 to 2 minutes of all-out effort, such as in a 400-meter sprint. Aerobic metabolism describes ATP production in the presence of oxygen. Aerobic ATP production takes longer, but it produces ATP in much greater amounts. One molecule of glucose results in the production of 36 to 38 molecules of ATP. Long-term activities with a low to moderate intensity, such as long-distance running, utilize ATP production from aerobic sources. ATP is produced aerobically through the oxidative pathway, specifically the Krebs cycle and electron transport chain. So, remember our pyruvate molecule from non-oxidative glycolysis? If the pyruvate is not converted to lactic acid, it can be converted instead to acetyl-CoA, the chemical used to power the Krebs cycle. Fats and proteins can also be converted into acetyl-CoA. This means that unlike the anaerobic pathways, the oxidative pathway can break down fat for energy. Fatty acids are a major source of energy during endurance events. As intensity increases, however, the oxidative pathway cannot keep up, and more carbohydrates are used in the process. If carbohydrates are not available, protein from the working muscles will be used. It is important to note that while there are 3 different pathways to provide the body with energy, these systems do not work independently of one another. During various types of exercise, from aerobic to anaerobic, all 3 systems are activated. However, the activity determines which of these systems dominates. So, for high-intensity, short-burst activities lasting 3 to around 15 seconds, the anaerobic ATP-CP pathway dominates. During high-intensity activities lasting between 15 to approximately 80 seconds, non-oxidative glycolytic pathway dominates. For activities longer than 80 seconds, the aerobic oxidative pathway dominates. Train each of the 3 major energy systems and focus on the system that is most closely related to the adaptation you are looking to achieve. We also need to think about what limits these pathways. In other words, what causes fatigue? Well, for one, starting materials. Muscles being strenuously exercised will rely on glycogen to power strength-generating muscle contractions. In endurance exercise, fatty acids and glycogen are needed. Therefore, depletion of available glucose, glycogen, and fatty acids will limit how long someone can continue an activity. Other factors that lead to fatigue include the depletion of ATP and CP, lactic acid accumulation, calcium ion buildup in the muscles, oxygen depletion, and an increase in blood pH. At the start of our lecture, we touched on the training effect, how the body adapts to learned and expected stress. Let's talk about that process a bit as we move from the chemical level of metabolism to the organization and functions of the human body. The body's immediate reaction to the new stress, before adaptation occurs, is known as the biological response. An example of a biological response would be an increase in your heart and respiratory rates when running. In an untrained individual, this rate increase can be quite high. As these actions are repeated, the body responds by adapting to the expected stress of running, which results in a less noticeable biological reaction. In other words, as you get better at running, your heart and respiratory rates will stay more constant. This results in the activity becoming easier, as well as an increased quality of life. These adaptations to stress are carried out in a multitude of processes within the human body, and changes occur at all levels. Let's take a look at how those levels are organized. The smallest components are chemicals, and they range from simple molecules, such as water, and include the most complex molecules of protein and DNA. These chemical components are the basic building blocks of cells, the fundamental units of life. Cells can associate with one another to form tissues. Tissues can form organs, and together with organs, they make up the systems of the human body. Cells form the fundamental units of life and contain several components. In this diagram, you can see several of the organelles and structures that make up a cell. These include the plasma membrane, the nucleus, the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, lysosomes, and mitochondria. Mitochondria are also known as the powerhouse of the cell and are responsible for providing energy for muscle contractions. Tissues are the next level of organization and are the fundamental units of function and structure for the human body. They are defined as the aggregation of cells bound together, which work to perform a common function. There are 4 categories of tissue: epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. Tissues can be organized further to form organs, and organs and tissues together make up systems. These systems combine to form the human body. There are 10 main body systems. These are as follows: the respiratory system, the circulatory system, the digestive system, the nervous system, the endocrine system, the skeletal system, the muscular system, the integumentary system, which includes the skin, hair, nails, and associated glands, the urinary system, and the reproductive systems. Let's review the systems that we'll encounter most in exercise science. The respiratory system consists of the lungs and air passageways leading to and from the lungs, including the mouth, throat, trachea, and bronchi. The respiratory system supplies oxygen, eliminates carbon dioxide, and helps regulate the pH balance of the body. The circulatory system serves as the transportation system of the body. The heart, arteries, and veins are part of this system. The circulatory system consists of two subsystems, the lymphatic system and the cardiovascular system. The lymphatic system is a network of vessels that support a clear fluid known as lymph to the heart. This system is responsible for the transport of fluids from the organs and plays an important role in our immune system and response. In the cardiovascular system, the heart pumps blood through a vast system of blood vessels. The heart tissue is mostly muscle. Unlike the lungs, which are powered by the diaphragm, the heart does its own work. The heart takes oxygen-laden blood and pumps it throughout the body. In the body, the cells exchange their carbon dioxide for the oxygen in the blood. Then, carbon dioxide-laden blood is pumped back through the heart to the lungs, where carbon dioxide is exchanged for oxygen through respiration. This oxygen-rich blood is then pumped back to the heart, where it again delivers oxygen and nutrients to the cells and removes waste products. Blood has four main constituents: plasma, erythrocytes, leukocytes, and platelets. Blood cells, nutrients, and waste products are suspended in the plasma, a protein-rich medium. Erythrocytes, also known as red blood cells, are responsible for the oxygen-carbon dioxide exchange, both with the cells and in the lungs. Leukocytes, also known as white blood cells, are responsible for fighting infections and foreign bodies. Platelets are responsible for coagulation or clotting. The digestive system consists of the digestive tract and the glands that secrete digestive juices into the tract. It is responsible for the breakdown of foods and waste elimination. The components of the digestive system are the mouth, esophagus, stomach, pancreas, liver, gallbladder, small intestine, large intestine, and rectum. The nervous system is the body's control center and network for internal communication. This system controls all voluntary movement as well as regulation of involuntary processes such as breathing, heart rate, and digestion. It is also important in stress regulation. Neurological adaptations are partly responsible for increases in strength and flexibility. This is accomplished through communication between the muscles and the central nervous system. For example, a skeletal muscle cannot contract until it is stimulated by a nerve impulse. The central nervous system is the control center of the body and is comprised of the brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system is comprised of the neurons that carry information from the CNS to the limbs and organs. The peripheral nervous system is further divided into the autonomic and somatic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system controls the involuntary processes of the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, which are responsible for the functions of blood vessels, glands, and internal organs. The somatic nervous system is responsible for voluntary movements and stimulates the contraction of skeletal muscles. The endocrine system works with the nervous system to maintain the steady state of the body. The endocrine system helps regulate growth, reproduction, use of nutrients by cells, salt and fluid balance, and metabolic rate. The endocrine system consists of tissues and glands that secrete chemical messengers called hormones. Hormones are made up of amino acids and can be divided into several classes based on their chemical makeup. The classifications are amino acid derivatives, peptide protein, steroids, and miscellaneous hormones. Let's take a look at some specific hormones that are important to our field. Two hormones, insulin and glucagon, are important in the transport of energy into cells. Insulin stimulates cells to take in glucose from the blood. Glucagon stimulates the liver to release glucose into the blood. Together, they maintain blood sugar levels in the body. Growth hormone is the most abundant hormone, as well as the largest and most complex protein produced by the pituitary gland. Growth hormone stimulates tissues to take up amino acids, synthesize new protein, and stimulate long bone growth. The thyroid gland, located in your neck, releases two hormones, thyroxin, T4, and triiodothyronine, T3. These two hormones can stimulate the metabolic rate, as well as regulate cell growth and activity. The adrenal glands produce epinephrine, more commonly called adrenaline, which causes a fight or flight response. The glands also produce aldosterone, which regulates the reabsorption of salt in the kidneys. And that's it for the body systems for this lecture. So there you have it. Energy created by the sun is transformed into digestible macronutrients by plants and animals. We ingest those macronutrients and convert them through digestion and chemical pathways into molecules that can be used for energy, or as the building blocks for cells, which combine tissues, which form organs, and finally, the organ systems that make up you.